Walk it off. You're fine, my dad growled as I curled up in pain. My brother said, she does this for sympathy. Even my mom said, she'll do anything to ruin a peaceful weekend. But when I lost consciousness and the paramedic ran a scan, she turned to them and said, you better call a lawyer. Because the MRI revealed the truth they had buried for years. But minutes before that realization, I was just lying twisted in the freezing snow, unable to feel my legs, staring up at my father. He wasn't calling for help. He was standing over me, screaming that I needed to transfer $2,000 from my brother's cracked phone screen before he would let the ambulance load me up. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. To understand why I was lying in the snow while my father negotiated the price of a phone screen, you have to understand what happened 24 hours earlier. You have to understand the hierarchy. In the kingdom of my family, Kyle was the emperor and I was the mule. We had arrived at the remote mountain cabin in the late afternoon. The driveway was a sheet of black ice, steep and treacherous. I parked my 10-year-old sedan at the bottom, engaging the emergency brake with a prayer. Kyle's least luxury SUV, paid for by my parents, was parked right at the top, engine running to keep the climate control perfect. Bella, grab the black duffel, my dad shouted from the porch. Careful. That's the server. It wasn't a server. It was a gaming console wrapped in a hoodie. But in my father's delusion, everything Kyle touched was enterprise-grade technology. I grabbed the heavy bag along with 2 suitcases of food and my mother's vanity case. The wind bit through my thin coat. I watched Kyle standing at the top of the stairs. He wasn't helping. He was holding a selfie stick, panning the camera across the snowy horizon, talking to his invisible audience about grind sets, and capturing the alpha energy of the mountains. My boots slipped on the ice. I stumbled, correcting my balance with a sharp gasp. Watch it, my mom snapped. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Kyle's jacket. Kyle, zip up. You can't afford to get sick right before the big launch. There was no launch. There was no company. But looking at them huddled around him like he was a fragile artifact, I finally understood the mechanism. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a survival strategy for their egos. They needed Kyle to be the genius Texio because if he was just a 30-year-old unemployed man living in their basement playing video games, then they were failures as parents. They needed the lie. And for the lie to work, they needed someone to hold the bags. They needed a servant to absorb the reality of the labor so the golden child could remain unblemished by the mundane. I was the trash can for their reality. That night, the dynamic solidified into something suffocating. I had paid the deposit for the Airbnb, a non-refundable $2,000 I had squeezed out of my savings, yet I was assigned the pull-out couch in the drafty living room. Kyle, who hadn't contributed a dime, took the master suite with the jacuzzi because he needed headspace to visualize the market. Dinner was a theater of the absurd. We sat around the rustic wooden table while Kyle held court. The charts are showing a double-bottom reversal, Kyle said, waving a forkful of pasta. I'm leveraging the liquidity pool for maximum yield. It's basically free money if you have the diamond hands for it. It was gibberish. I work in logistics. I manage supply chains for a tri-state shipping fleet. I know what leverage and liquidity actually mean. Kyle was just regurgitating buzzwords he'd heard on TikTok. That's incredible, son, my dad said, nodding solemnly. He looked at me. You see, Bella? You work hard for pennies. Kyle works smart for millions. Actually, I said, setting down my water glass. If the liquidity is locked, how are you paying for gas tomorrow? You asked me for $50 in the driveway. The silence was instant and hostile. My mother slammed her hand on the table. Don't do that, she hissed. Don't bring your petty jealousy into his flow. He's building an empire and you're worrying about gas money? You have no vision, Bella. That's why you'll always be an assistant. I looked at them. My father beaming at a fraud. My mother attacking the only person in the room with a paycheck. I didn't argue. I didn't defend my title as a logistics manager. I just realized that in their story I was the villain because I kept trying to turn on the lights. I went to sleep on the lumpy couch, listening to the wind howl against the glass, unaware that the ice outside was hardening into a weapon that would shatter everything by sunrise. The next morning, the silence of the mountains was heavy and absolute. I woke up shivering. The fire had died hours ago and the cold had seeped into the cabin, turning my breath into small clouds of fog. I checked my phone. It was 7 a.m. I walked to the kitchen to make coffee, my muscles stiff from hauling the luggage. Through the sliding glass door I could see the deck. Overnight, a fresh layer of snow had melted and refrozen into a sheet of black ice, slick and deadly. I was pouring my first cup when Kyle walked in. He was already dressed in his snow gear, brand new, tag still on, holding his phone up. Morning, team, he whispered to his screen. We're up early. We're grinding while the competition sleeps. Gonna do a quick cold plunge mental reset on the deck. Watch this. He winked at the camera and pointed to the door. Bella, grab your coffee. Come out here. I need a second angle. It's freezing, Kyle, I said, wrapping my hands around the mug. And the deck is ice. Don't be a buzzkill, he snapped, his streamer persona slipping for a second. Just stand by the railing. It's for the content. It's for the brand. I sighed. It was easier to comply than to argue. I put on my boots and stepped out onto the deck. The cold hit me like a slap. The wood beneath my feet was treacherous, coated in a layer of ice so clear it looked like glass. I moved carefully toward the railing, holding my coffee with both hands. Okay, I'm here, I said, turning my back to the stairs that led down to the driveway. What do you want me to do? Just stand there and look natural, Kyle directed, positioning himself behind a thick wooden pillar near the door. Act like you're enjoying the view. I turned to look at the trees, my back to him. I heard a shuffle of boots on ice. Then a giggle. Prank time, he whispered, loud enough for his microphone but quiet enough that I barely registered it. I didn't hear him move. I just felt the sudden violent shove against my shoulders. It wasn't playful. It was forceful, a two-handed push meant to startle me into dropping my coffee for a reaction shot. "Bio!" he screamed. But he miscalculated. He miscalculated the ice. He miscalculated his own footing. As he shoved me, his boots lost traction. He slipped, flailing, and his weight drove into me harder than he intended. I flew forward. My feet went out from under me. I didn't just stumble, I was launched. I hit the railing with my lower back. A sickening wet crunch that echoed through the silent woods, and then I flipped over it. The world spun. Sky, trees, snow. I landed hard on the stairs below, my body twisting in a way bodies aren't meant to twist. I slid down 3 steps and came to a stop in a heap of snow and agony. Silence. For a second there was no sound but the wind in the trees. Then from the deck above, a scream. No. No, no, no. It wasn't a scream of concern. It was a scream of loss. My phone. My charts. I lay there staring up at the gray sky. The pain hadn't hit me yet. Just a strange, cold numbness spreading from my waist down. I tried to move my legs to stand up to see what had happened. Nothing. My brain sent the signal but my body didn't answer. Above me, Kyle was scrambling on the ice. Mom. Dad. Help. The door flew open. I heard heavy footsteps thundering across the deck. Kyle. Are you okay? My mother's voice, shrill with panic. She made me drop it. Kyle wailed. She flailed around and hit my hand. Look at the screen. It's shattered. Oh my God, my dad gasped. Is the data backed up? Is the wallet safe? I tried to call out. Mom. My voice was a croak. Dad. They didn't look over the railing. They were huddled around Kyle, 3 heads bowed over a piece of glass and metal. It's flickering, Kyle sobbed. I can't see the graph. I'm losing money right now. It's okay, son, my dad soothed. We'll fix it. We'll get it fixed immediately. Lying in the snow, unable to feel my toes, I realized the truth. They hadn't even looked to see where I had fallen. The crunch of my spine hitting the wood had been drowned out by the tragedy of a cracked screen. I woke up to the sound of crunching snow. My vision swam back into focus, gray sky and pine needles spinning above me. I tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea and white-hot pain slammed me back down. Then I saw them. My parents were rushing down the stairs. For a split second, a foolish, childish part of me felt relief. They're coming. They're coming to help. But they didn't stop at the bottom step where I lay twisted in a heap. They didn't kneel beside me. They didn't touch my forehead or check my pulse. They stepped over me. Literally. My father's heavy boot landed inches from my face as he hurried past to where Kyle was still kneeling on the ice. My mother skirted around my legs, her eyes fixed on the device in Kyle's hands. Let me see, Gary demanded, his voice thick with panic. Is the screen responsive? It's dead. Kyle wailed, holding the phone up like a fallen soldier. The display is bleeding pixels. Look at the spiderweb crack. It's right over the biometric sensor. You clumsy idiot. The scream wasn't directed at Kyle. It was directed at me. My mother turned, her face contorted not with worry but with fury. Look what you did, Bella. You flailed around like a maniac and hit his hand. You ruined the vibe. You ruined the whole weekend. Mom, I wheezed. I can't feel my legs. Oh, stop it, she snapped. Stop trying to deflect. You always do this. You break something valuable and then play the victim so we can't be mad at you. It's manipulative. Brenda, look at this, Gary interrupted, ignoring me completely. The chassis is bent. This isn't a screen replacement. This is a total unit loss. Do you know what the replacement cost is on a limited edition titanium model? I was midstream. Kyle shouted. I had 1,200 viewers. They saw the feed cut. My brand is going to tank. He had 12 viewers. I knew because I had checked the account earlier to see if he was actually working. But in that moment the number didn't matter. What mattered was the hierarchy. Lying there, freezing, I finally understood the trap of normalized cruelty. It wasn't that they hated me. It was a value assessment. To them, Kyle was the future. He was the investment. He was the protagonist. Therefore his tools, his phone, his jacket, his ego, were sacred relics. I was the support staff. My body was just a piece of infrastructure, like a shelf or a rug. If a shelf breaks and damages the king's crown, you don't mourn the shelf. You curse it for failing its only purpose. Dad, I tried again, my voice stronger this time, driven by fear. My back. It crunched. Please. Gary finally looked at me. His eyes were cold, assessing me not as a daughter but as a liability. Get up, Bella, he growled. Stop making a scene in the yard. The neighbors will see. I can't get up. You can. You're just embarrassed because you know you owe your brother a new phone. Call 911, I whispered. No, Brenda said immediately. We are not having sirens and flashing lights up here. We don't have the insurance coverage for an ambulance ride just because you bruised your tailbone. We'll help you to the car later. Right now we need to get Kyle inside. He's freezing. My hands are shaking, Kyle whimpered. I can't feel my fingers. Oh, honey, let's get you to the fire, Brenda cooed, wrapping her arm around his shoulders. Gary helped Kyle to his feet and led him toward the cabin, leaving me paralyzed in the snow. Don't move, Bella, he called back. Think about how you're going to pay for this. The door shut. The cold seeped in, numbing the pain into something worse. I understood then that if I waited for them to care, I would die. So I reached for my phone, the one thing Kyle didn't have, and called 911. I gave the address, the injury, the gate code. I can't feel my legs, I said. I'm alone outside. I wasn't really alone. Through the glass, I watched my family make hot cocoa, steam rising as if nothing were wrong. When the sirens arrived, Gary exploded, furious about embarrassment and neighbors. A paramedic named Amanda ignored him and focused on me. I couldn't feel my legs. Her voice hardened as she called in a spinal injury and requested life flight. My parents protested the cost. As they blocked the stretcher, Gary demanded I transfer $2,000 to cover Kyle's phone before I was allowed to leave. Amanda warned him once. Then she threatened arrest for obstructing emergency transport. He moved. At the hospital, my parents argued about deductibles, not my condition. Dr. Patel revealed a burst spinal fracture, then something worse. Multiple healed fractures consistent with long-term abuse. Before they could deny it, police arrived. Kyle had live-streamed everything. The fall. The aftermath. My parents stepping over me to check a phone. The internet had already documented it. Kyle was arrested. My parents were exposed. Their reputations collapsed. I didn't pay the money. I sued. Months later, relearning how to walk, my father called begging forgiveness. You aren't my family, I said. You are my employers. And I quit. I took another step. It hurt, but for the first time the pain was mine. Some debts can't be paid. Some people can't be saved. And sometimes surviving means walking away.